Hey, what's going on, guys? Jay Santos here, lead commissioner, here with my main man, Dougie Fresh. How you doing, boy?
Yeah, dude.
It's just going to be us two because Brian's 0-2 and no one listens to a guy that's 0-2. So,
Guy ran out of material.
What was that?
He ran out of material.
He had nothing left. So, this week we're going to go over best, worst, and surprising player performances, worst and best coaching decisions, waiver moves, the matchups and recaps from last week, and then also a preview of what this week's going to do. And just a heads up, this recording is just going to be audio. We're not going to have the slideshow like we've had in previous broadcasts just because it just hasn't come out all right. So just an audio broadcast, so just follow along as we go. All right, so we'll jump into the best player performances. And Doug and I are looking at some players such as Big Ben, Pat Mahomes, and Kirk Cousins in regards to the quarterback position. Doug, is there anything you want to mention about these players?
Sure. You want me to just keep stroking my boy Pat Mahomes? Dude has a fucking laser. No, I mean, Big Ben, like, just on sheer volume because the defense sucks. Like, he just has big games. Not really a huge fan of him, but hey, that's just me. Kirk, we threw in there because I saw Diggs and Thielen down there for the wide receivers, and those guys can't both ball out unless Kirky is doing his thing. So I thought he looked awesome. He's actually like one of my favorite players because he just doesn't fucking care. He drives like a minivan and just goes out and slings it 48 times a game or whatever it was, threads the needle, fits it through holes. So, yeah, Kirk I thought was really impressive this week in the tying effort versus the Packers.
Defend my boy Big Ben. Yes, the defense is not great, but I mean, neither is Pat Mahomes, so that's why he's putting up points, and that's why his wide receivers are taking advantage of it. So I put both of those two players not only because they were the top performing quarterbacks, but also because they're pretty damn good quarterbacks. Moving on to Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon as the top running back performers. I mean, there's really not much to say right here. We knew going into the season that these guys were going to be top 7, running backs. Gurley, obviously one of the top 3. They're getting volume. They're getting red zone looks, goal line looks, catches. This is what we expected.
Yeah, I mean, Gurley's just a pimp. Gordon, like, I don't know. Like, I wish he was, like, a better running back. Like, he's not that good at running, but he just gets, like, 1 million targets a game and catches, 9 balls for 80 every week. And it's like he's kind of like a wide receiver. It's almost not fair because he's, like, a shit running back, but he just produces. So Gordon's, like, I don't know. He just, like, doesn't excite me. I don't have him anywhere, but, like, yeah, I guess if you own him, like, it's pretty cool.
I don't know him anywhere, but I'm gonna give him a little bit more credit than you do, just because he's actually, I think he's a more than above average player. I think he's better than what you were saying. So moving on to the wide receivers, you mentioned 2 already that I have here, and that's Diggs and Thielen. I mean, I can't really add much to what you were saying before. They're pimps. They're great players. I think Diggs is very, very similar to Antonio Brown, not only in the way that they're built, but also the way that they actually play and also their hands. So you got a guy like Kirk Cousins slinging the ball around. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to. Both of those guys are going to be putting up points. And the other 2 guys I have here are A.J. Green and Michael Thomas. Again, studs. This is what we were anticipating. I'd actually argue that Michael Thomas might be the number 1 wide receiver for the rest of the season just because of all the volume that he's getting down in New Orleans.
I think he's got, I think I saw a stat. He's like got the most catches through 2 games of like any receiver in history. So that's cool, especially when you have like a real good quarterback and you play on like the AstroTurf that he's so fast on. AJ Green kind of for me falls into that like Melvin Gordon bucket. Like he obviously went off on my face this week, so that's not that cool. But like he had like 5 grabs for 70 yards, but 3 of them were touchdowns. So again, the production was there. I just like if he doesn't like you're going to have weeks with him where when he doesn't score and it's like he's really not all that impressive. He's not a Michael Thomas or a Diggs where he can just rack up like, hundreds of yards on 12 grabs. It just doesn't seem like that he's that player anymore.
Well, we can both agree that Andy Dalton is not on the same level as Kirk Cousins or on Drew Brees, right?
We can agree on that.
So that does hamper AJ Green, but we're also talking about a guy that, he's strung together. I think it's 7 consecutive 1,000 yard seasons, and actually it's not 7. I think 1 year he was like 50 yards short. So he's definitely up there in regards to elite talents at the wide receiver position. It's just whether or not the fucking Red Rocket, the Red Rifle himself, will put together a good game. That's what holding us back. So I can see a little bit of what you're saying, but at the same time, I trust the talent. I think he's an elite wide receiver. When it comes to Travis Kelce and OJ Howard, they were the top 2 tight ends over the weekend. Kelce went off on my face in a different league, but also my real life team. He just got open like whenever he wanted. It was just a pitch and catch whenever Mahomes wanted to target him, and also any one of his other wide receivers. He's a stud. OJ Howard might be just like Travis Kelce. He's a freak of nature.
Disagree.
He's busting out. He's busting long runs. There's a reason why he was a first-round pick. I think he could be on the same talent level as a Travis Kelce.
I'm going to disagree. I think having OJ Howard on this list kind of goes to show like the current status of the tight end position. Like, it's just fucking garbage out there. Outside of Gronk and Kelce, like, it is not good. If you saw that play, OJ Howard caught like a 75-yard touchdown and he should have been tackled like 3 times. The Eagles were just fucking losing their minds and shitting on themselves. So OJ Howard doesn't really excite me. Sure, could he be fantasy relevant? Yeah, he's going to be because everybody else sucks. But like, not a player that really excites me all that much.
Fair enough. I can go on that, but we'll move on to worst performances. A couple of guys here are surprises, some aren't, but let's start off with Sam Bradford. So I looked into just to see how bad the Arizona Cardinals offense was. So I went to the film room, I looked at the all 22, and I'm telling you, man, like, he is awful. Like, you
couldn't pay me enough to watch all 22 of the Arizona Cardinals.
Well, I wanted to see that, and also my boy, Sean McVay, best coach in the NFL on the offensive side. He's a wizard, but I digress. But man, Bradford is the one thing that's holding back that team. The offensive line, it's not that great, but when DJ was getting touches, he actually produced. When Sam Bradford had time in the pocket, he was making the worst possible decision you can make every single time. He's holding back the offense. The coach needs to bench him, put in Rosen because it can't get any worse.
I would say that Bradford is hardly the only thing that's holding back the Arizona Cardinals. David Johnson's obviously a real good player, nice player, but like outside of that, what do they have? You can tell me they have Larry Fitzgerald, but he's like 90. He's kind of turning into like Jason Witten, it feels like, where he can just like catch it and kind of fall over. Bradford, like, sure, it's a bad performance, but like nobody's really counting on him to do anything anyway. So, I'm not going to get too caught up on it.
Well, the reason why I put in here is because of the effect that we have on set players, like you were mentioning, DJ and also Larry Fitzgerald. And when I looked at that film, Larry Fitzgerald was going against Marcus Peters or Aqib Talib every single snap. So I don't put too much weight on Larry in that game. I think when you have softer matchups, he's actually going to have better performances.
You're right. The Rams corners are legit.
They were shutting them down. Their defense is unreal.
Wide receivers all year.
The Rams are the best team in the NFL. I said it. That's not me going on a limb, but I said it.
I heard it.
Andrew Luck, Mitch Trubisky here. Luck, he's going to have these games. He's coming back from shoulder surgery. He's going to have great games. He's going to have bad games. They still somehow pulled out a W, but if you were counting on him in fantasy, you did not do well. And in regards to Mitch Trubisky, he showed some flashes, but he couldn't really throw anything downfield. It was all just like little dump offs, like any passes that were within like 10, 15 yards or less. Nothing to get too excited about. What do you got?
Yeah, Luck is like I think a situation where he's a far better like real life quarterback than he's ever going to be for fantasy at this point. I think he knows that because of what's around him and the defense, he kind of has to manage the game. So he's I would assume taking less risks and just trying to put his team in the best position to just have a chance. Trubisky, I'm gonna guess a lot of the people listening to this watch that game. He's fucking sucks. Like he reminds me of like early Blake Bortles, and if you may recall, he fucking sucked too. Like kind of like pretty athletic and big and like can run, but like just misses like the easiest fucking throws. Like he had Taylor Gabriel like up the left seam wide open for a touchdown and overthrew him by like 15 yards. He fucking sucks.
Yeah, yeah. It's what's that guy's name? Mitch Nagy, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy, the guy that wears a visor but he's bald. Doesn't make sense.
Commentators talking about that.
Yeah, SVP for days. I mean, I know I said in a previous show that I think he could be, like a Ryan Tannehill. I mean, that might be his ceiling.
Yeah, it's not good for Mitch. I mean, he's really got to figure it out. If you remember, I comped him to Bortles. Bortles, like 2 years ago, had to like spend an entire offseason like retooling his mechanics and like his throwing motion. I'm going to guess you're going to hear some stuff like that about Trubisky after this year if they intend to really, to continue to kind of invest in pieces around him rather than try to replace him because it's not good for Mitch.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So running backs, we got Burkhead, Duke Johnson, and DJ. We've already gone over DJ. I still think that there's some optimism there as long as they make a QB switch because he was getting, when I looked at it, man, like he was still getting 4 or 5 yards a carry when he was getting the opportunities. He's just not getting the opportunities because they didn't pass midfield until 30 seconds left in the game. It was terrible. Duke Johnson, Rex Burkhead, those are guys that actually people were counting on to at least be low-end RB2s, flex options, and they've done pretty much nothing over the course of the last 2 games. Do you see anything of optimism? Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for any of these players?
No, I mean, I buried Duke Johnson like 2 years ago. I owned him in some different spots over the years, and he is just a consistent disappointment. Like, the way they use him, if they use him the way you want him to, he sucks anyway. Like, every now and then he'll have the odd, like, 9 reception for 54-yard game. Maybe sneaks in the end zone, but, like, this is not a guy I ever want to look at in my starting lineup because it's never what you hope it's going to be. Burkhead, like, what's going on in New England with the running backs? Like, they have a million of them. You never know how they're going to get used. I think he was hurt coming in. Like, again, another guy, I think, who had quite a bit of buzz coming into the season who, again, not that exciting. Like, it's going to be hard to pick when, he'll have a couple good games, but it's going to be hard to pick when that is and play him accordingly.
The one thing I'll add about Burkhead, first off, I agree with everything that you were saying, but the one thing I'll add about Burkhead is that I haven't really seen New England get into, like, a 3rd and goal situation from like the 2-yard line so far over the course of the first 2 games. I think that's where Burkhead's going to be the goal line back. I think it's going to be James White in the same role that he had last year. Sony Michel is going to take over the Dion Lewis role, and Burkhead's going to have the same role last year, which was he'll catch a couple passes, he'll rush in the red zone, and he's going to be the one that they ask to punch in the touchdowns. They haven't been there yet, but, I mean, who knows what's going to go on with them.
I mean, I'm not in the business of taking, like, 5'8", 185-pound goal line backs. Not really trying to hang my hat on that.
Well, especially the white ones, too.
Correct.
So moving on to wide receivers, Larry Fitzgerald, Robbie Anderson, Kenny Stills, Demaryius Thomas were some of the highlighted worst performances of the week. I've gone over my take. We both have gone over our takes with Larry Fitzgerald. Robbie Anderson, not the number 1 wide receiver. I said it on a previous show. I didn't think he was a number one wide receiver. It's proven that he's not a number one wide receiver. Quincy Enunwa has taken over that role. He's getting peppered with targets. I'm down on Robbie Anderson or any Jets player outside of Quincy Enunwa.
Yeah, I mean this list is like depressing. Like Anderson, a lot of talent. Again, like you said, not being used probably the way he was last year, and Darnold definitely seems to have the much better connection with Enunwa. So again, do you want this guy in your lineup going forward? Probably not. Moving down the line here, Kenny Stills, we know him from the last like 15 years. It feels like going to be boom or bust. He kind of relies on the big play. When he doesn't hit one, it's the production is again depressing. Demaryius Thomas, aging player, doesn't excite me. They've got some other fancy weapons in Denver that I think they're trying to use, and also Case Keenum is kind of underwhelmed first couple games too. So I have a feeling this guy Thomas may appear on this list more than a few times this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Case Keenum only has eyes for Emmanuel Sanders, and Demaryius Thomas he's at the same level as Des Bryant. How he's still on the Broncos, I don't know, but he's an old player in decline. Tight ends, worst performances was Gronk, your boy Jack Doyle, and my boy George Kittle. Not expecting the performance from Kittle. Kind of expected, maybe not expected 2.5 points from Gronk, but I expected a tough day. And then Doyle, that's what you're going to get out of an indie tight end. One of the guys is going to do great. The other one's not going to do so great, and vice versa between him and Ebron. What do you got?
So going across the list here, Gronkowski, I think, that the New England offense looked terrible. Jaguars gave him all sorts of problems. I think with the Jaguars, they can play man on the outside with Ramsey and Bouye or Boye or however you say it. And then they can kind of, if somebody, in a situation where New England really likes to get Gronk involved, they could kind of double him and do things defensively to eliminate that threat when they can isolate guys on the outside with single coverage. So, I don't know that you expected it, but you may see more of that against Gronkowski with teams with really good corners on the outside. Doyle, I think he may have gotten hurt. We've said in previous weeks, like, you got a problem, you call Jack Doyle. It's hard to call Jack Doyle when your problem is Jack Doyle. So, we'll see what happens there. Kittle, maybe the San Francisco offense coming back to reality a little bit. I think we're going to touch on Breida. Seems like a lot of the offense is flowing through him. So I don't know. I don't think he got hurt, but he's been an injury-prone player. So not a guy I have anywhere. Kind of a cool name. I don't know.
I'm still high on Kittle. I think he could be a top 6 or 7 tight end. I just think he's a physical freak. The way that they used him against Minnesota, much better defense, is going to actually be the case more times than not. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. So moving on to, you wanted to mention the Seattle O-line as one of the worst performances. You want to go in on that?
Yeah, it's hideous. I mean, I think Russell Wilson got sacked like 5 times in the first half. He ended up, I think, with like 3 fumbles. They may have recovered 1 or 2 of them. Threw an atrocious pick 6 at the end of the game when he had been just getting pounded. You can't really blame him, but this team is like a complete disaster. Lockett's been producing a little bit because they just don't have anything else. Like when Brandon Marshall is getting like 8-9 targets a game in 2018, it's a big fucking problem. So again, Seattle's going to show up in a variety of ways on this worst performances list a bunch of times this year. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, I can't.
Pete Carroll's a fucking boner too. He's like, they always show him and he's like fucking making weird faces and whacking on his gum. Fucking fuck that guy.
Yeah, he's a plug. He's nothing special. I think we could easily put up here Arizona's O-line. We could put the Giants' O-line here. And there's a lot of bad offensive lines in the NFL, but Seattle giving up 5 sacks in one half, that's up there as probably the worst. All right, so surprising performances. Fitzmagic, another solid week. QB1 or up there as one of the QB1s. It's going to end at some point. Is it going to end against my Steelers this Monday night? Probably not, because the Steelers defense sucks. But the next following week, probably, because it's going to end at some point. But it was just surprising that he put up another 30 piece on the Eagles defense, even though the Eagles were on the road. You mentioned Breida, or how like Brian likes to call him, burrito. You know, he's the number one running back over there. And when I mean a number one running back, like it's like a 55-45 split. It's one of those committee backfields. You're not going to know, or you're not going to feel comfortable with picking one guy over the other. Like, yes, Breida leads the league right now in rushing yards, but he wasn't even close to the league in week 1. And that was because it was more of an Alfred Morris scheme. So you're not going to feel comfortable. If you have him in your starting lineup, he's going to get touches. It's going to be the new Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman role. That's how Kyle Shanahan works. He goes with a committee backfield, and that's all I got to say about that.
Fitzpatrick, I think, is interesting because, like, does it end because the magic ends, or do they go to Winston? Like, there's no way they can pull him out of here, right? If they, even if they lose to Pittsburgh, but he has an okay performance, throws a couple touchdowns, 250, like they can't pull him, right? Like it's got to still be his team.
Correct.
So we'll see how that goes. Breida, haven't seen much of him. I don't think Alfred Morris is like a serious threat to eat into that 55-45 workload anymore. So, I think you said, like, you're never going to know what you're going to get out of him, but I think you can kind of count on that at least 55, 60% of the workload on a team that should be in a lot of games. So, I think he's a nice piece. Go right into Lindsey. I watched some highlights. I think Oakland's run defense is a little bit better than the team as a whole. So I don't think it was a great matchup, but again, he continues to just get carries, catch balls. He's like he's like a slippery runner. I watched some tape on him, and he just he gets tackled, but all of a sudden he's not down and he's got 3 more yards, and he spins and he gets extra yardage, and pretty impressive player. I continue to be kind of enamored with this kid. So we'll see where it goes. Hopefully he can continue to take some work from Freeman, and it can become less of a committee there.
Let me ask you this: Who would be a player comp for Philip Lindsay?
I don't know. I think I need to see a little bit more of him. He's so small. Like, you don't see a lot of running backs that get a lot of work at his size. Again, he's slippery. Like, he kind of hides. I'm trying to think. There's been guys over the years, they kind of hide behind the offensive line for a little while, and like the defenders can't even see him. And all of a sudden he finds a little crease, and boom, he's got 3-4 yards. So I don't have somebody offhand. I'll try to work on that. But I will say, I think I mentioned last week, or I think that's getting more traction. I think it's like a 3-horse race at this point. Him, Darnold, and Barkley. Barkley's averaging like 2 yards a carry outside of that 165-yard run week 1. I know they don't take that out when they consider the averages, but if that trend continues, it's not good for him. Granted, he caught 14 balls because Eli Manning sucks. But if that team goes like 3-13, 4-12, and he doesn't have a ridiculous season, I don't think Barkley can win Rookie of the Year. If the Jets are kind of go ahead.
You're going. I see where you're going, but all right, go on, keep going.
So, and then the other serious threat I think is Darnold. If they don't win 7-8 games, can you really give it to a rookie quarterback that the team isn't very good? If he doesn't go for 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, I don't really think he can. And if Lindsey keeps getting this work and he's getting 100 scrimmage yards a game, I don't know. I'm having a hard time picking somebody who's going to win this award.
It's 2 games. He's had a great 2 games. You're shooting your shot. You're a shot caller, going with Lindsey for Offensive Player of the Year or Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Bucket Player of the Year. I don't care.
He's done great. So I'll give you an example of a player comp. I think he's similar to Dion Lewis. I think he's maybe not as shifty as Dion Lewis, but they do a couple things that are very, very similar. They catch the ball well. They can run between the tackles, even though they're very, very small guys. They won't run someone over. But I like Lindsey as a player. He's exciting. He's nice to watch. Moving on to wide receivers, Keelan Cole, Nelson Aguilar, and John Brown. I put these guys in there because these weren't guys that people were counting on going into the season, but each one of them has not only performed in 1 week, but also multiple weeks. Nelson Aguilar with Alshon out, he's the only wide receiver that you want on the Eagles. John Brown has actually scored or actually been the number one wide receiver in Baltimore over Michael Crabtree. He's catching deep balls. He's even being targeted in the red zone. He's a good player. He just hasn't been good over the last couple of years because he's been, with the sickle cell, whatever, disease that is. He had a little issue with that in Arizona, but he's a very, very good player, and he's showing off the talent with Baltimore. And Keelan Cole, I'm going to be honest, I didn't think Keelan Cole was all that special, but now with Marquise Lee out, he's showing that he can actually be the number one wide receiver on that team. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be, a top 12 wide receiver. I'm not even saying he's going to be a top 15 or top 20, but will he have more games like this where he scores over 20 points? I think you can maybe count on a few more games where he's going to blow up like that. Anything else you got, Dad?
No, I agree on Cole. I think there's going to be some down games just because they spread it around. Aguilar's kind of fulfilling that potential that people thought he had coming out. I think he was a first rounder.
Correct.
We'll see. I know the Eagles just signed Matthews, and him and Jordan Matthews and Carson Wentz are like butt buddies. They like touch each other's buttholes and stuff. So hopefully that doesn't affect it too much. And John Brown, you mentioned he's got the sickle cell, so playing in Arizona wasn't great because there's a little bit of altitude there. Hopefully in Baltimore he can be a little bit healthier throughout the year. And I think Flacco is kind of a nice fit for him. Flacco is a guy who he kind of throws it to a spot and tries to throw guys open, and the guys need to make plays for him, and that's kind of who John Brown is too. So I think it's a really nice fit there with Flacco in Baltimore for John Brown.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Tight ends, Jesse James, Austin Hooper. It's Austin Hooper, right? For the Falcons.
Yes.
Two of the more surprising. But this goes to show what you were saying before about the tight end position. You're never going to know outside of the top three tight ends who's going to blow up. Jesse James is like a 40-year-old dad running with a piano strapped to his back. Like the guy's like Jason Witten, but slower at a younger age. It doesn't make any sense.
Taller and slow. He's a taller, slower version of Jason Witten.
It doesn't make any sense.
Hooper, I think, can kind of sustain this a little bit. I think Atlanta's figuring out that to kind of fix some of their red zone woes, they got to get more guys involved. I think Hooper's probably that guy. So, I think there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for Hooper here. I think he can kind of continue some of this production and the uptick.
Yeah, but he does this. He's done this over the last 2 years. I mean, the Super Bowl against the Patriots, he had an amazing touchdown that put them up, 28-3. Everybody knows 28-3. But he had an amazing touchdown to put them up. And then last year, he had a couple other games that amazing catches. This is who he is. He's going to be a guy that's going to score 15, 20 points once or twice, tops 3 times a year. And the rest of the games, he's going to give you most likely around like 4 to 6 points. That's what I think. I think there's too many mouths to feed in Atlanta, and I don't really have a lot of confidence in Matt Ryan feeding Austin Hooper in the red zone. So
Austin Hooper, not to be confused with Anderson Cooper.
That's where I was going with that. A couple of coaching, both best and worst coaching that we want to touch on. I'll go first. Some of the worst coaching that I saw this past weekend has to be Steve Wilkes. I mean, the coach for the Arizona Cardinals, for the sole reason that your team did not past the 50-yard line until 30 seconds left in the game, you have to know you just got to give up. You got to put the rookie in. Just put him in there. You were getting blown out over 30-0. Just put him in there and see what you got, even just for 5-6 minutes. It was dreadful. Steve Wilkes, if you don't start Josh Rosen within the next few weeks, I don't know what you're doing. You're getting paid to do nothing. Although the defense does look good, but when you're on the field for 3/4 of the game, they're going to give up points. Who'd you go with for your worst coaching?
So I went with Hugh Jackson and McVay. Now that's going to sound a little weird, but it came out today or yesterday that both of these teams started and dressed kickers who were injured. Like both these guys had injuries going into the game that allegedly the coaches didn't know about. How the fuck do you not know that your kicker can't fucking kick? Like that's ridiculous. That is so fucking stupid. Like, how do you not have a guy who's in charge of like, all right, well, let's first things first. I gotta check to go down my checklist here. Can my kicker kick? Like that's retarded. So those two guys, like, come on, guys, do a little better than that.
For the best coaching decision, I went with the Jags coach, Doug Marrone, just because they learned from their mistakes in the AFC Championship game where they were aggressive against the Patriots on a consistent basis. There was at one point where Bortles had an interception and everybody said it. Like, oh, here comes the Patriots. They're going to come back and they're going to have this great comeback win. Nope. The Jags stayed aggressive. They pushed the ball on offense. They went for it on 4th down, and they ended up pulling out a pretty big win, even though it's week 2, pulling off a big win against the defending champs. And I think they showed that the Patriots, outside of Tom Brady, they're really not that good of a team. Who'd you have for your best coaching?
I put Zimmer for the Vikings. They had the tie with Green Bay, but their kicker missed 3 kicks. Poor rookie kicker. He looked like he was fucking shell shocked. But there was a clip in I think it was maybe the press conference on Monday, and a reporter was like, you know, what went into the decision to cut Daniel Carlson? Carlson's the kicker. And he goes, did you see the game? And then the reporter's like, well, was it a difficult decision? And he just dead, like stone cold. He goes, nah, it was pretty easy. And I thought I just kind of respect the guy who was like, nah, man, my kicker fucking blew, so he's out of here.
Yeah, I did see that as well. Although, not his best decision in drafting him in the 5th round, especially for being a kicker, but definitely it's up there for the best press conference this season so far.
In the young season, for sure. I don't want to get into it, but I have some theories on kickers and some things that should just be changed.
Go ahead, blow my mind.
So, like, these guys, like, all of a sudden, like, they're good kickers, right? And then they get into, like, pressure situations, and, like, they can't make the kicks. And I don't know, like, they're so like, dispensable that, like, they should just – every team should have, like, 3 kickers. And every week in practice, they should have, like contests. Who can make the most kicks? And the guy who wins the contest kicks that week and gets a paycheck. Like, that way in the game, they're not like, you know, you always have your 3 kickers. So, like, it doesn't really matter if you show up in a game and miss 3 kicks. Like, next week, you're going to, like, the pressure is in practice, not in the game. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to lose your job for missing a kick in a game because you're going to have to go to practice this week and, like, win the contest to be the kicker for the week to earn a paycheck. Like, the fact that these guys, like, there's just no pressure ever, and then all of a sudden they get thrown into, like, the most important part of a football game just doesn't add up for me.
So treat them like their horse. Just use them and abuse them.
Yes. 50-cent Korean street horse.
I can't disagree. I'd like to. I was trying to find a way to disagree, but I can't. That's analysis right there.
That 50-cent Korean street horse should become a drop.
So waiver moves, we've only had a few from this afternoon. Kevin picked up Jesse James, dropped Cameron Brate. Brian picked up Jordan Wilkins, dropped Derek Carr. I had a couple open spots, so I picked up Latavius Murray and the Browns defense. Any of these you think are going to have?
Latavius, I think if it sounds like I don't think Dalvin Cook practiced today, so you might have a little something there, but that's about it.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to go over here. You got a replacement level defense. Latavius Murray is a handcuff. Yeah, okay, that has a little bit of an impact. There's a reason why I dropped Jordan Wilkins. That's just going to be a Philadelphia running back situation that you really don't want to be a part of. And Jesse James is a tight end. That's probably going to be his best game for the rest of the season. So we can move on.